Hi guys, welcome in the second episode of the series about learning from my own mistakes from the past. Today I will be reviewing my code, catching up the mistakes and explain why they should be corrected. So, without further ado, let's get started. The first and, in my opinion, the biggest mistake is that I didn't separate service from controller. So basically, as you can see here, this is that class is called to the item service, and it's annotated actually with REST controller. So you might see that something is wrong here, and it is indeed so. Basically, these things should be separated. So the controller and the service should be separate classes, actually. So because they just have should have different responsibilities. So controllers handle some basic things like pulling out what data is needed from the HTTP request and deciding what service that data should go to, and of course ultimately returning a response. Yes, so that's the responsibility of controllers, while the services take care of the heavy lifting, like calling the database and processing and formatting data, handling algorithms based on business rules, etc. And things not specific to the HTTP layer, but specific to your own business domain. So that should be a responsibility. These are different responsibilities. So basically, what we have here is that we have mixed up I have mixed up everything. So here we have mappings, which are which should be basically in controllers. So these mappings, and these are mixed. These are elements from the controller, and also the response entity is rather front-endly related. So even you can see that it is from Arc Spring Framework HTTP. So as I mentioned, this type of things should be used in the controller, not in the service. And so these elements should be on the controller, and these elements, like here, this body, these conditionals and conditional statements and so on, should stay in the service. So we are fetching the data from the repository and make some operations on them, stream, sort, and collect the list. And all of this should be in the service. So basically, bodies of these methods uh, should be like put in the service, and the rest of that should be in the controller. So like, why should we do this? Is that there are some problems with reusability of the service, for example. Like, okay, this is a simple application, but if we have plenty of services, plenty of controllers, then there is high probability that we will have to reuse this code somewhere. And for example, this to-do item service can be used by another service. So we could reuse, for example, this method of getting all of to-do items. And right now it is not possible because it is a REST controller. Actually, we are using it in our endpoints, in our API, so it is not reusable. So that's it, and so that should be separated. And another problem here is that, as you can see, we are using to-do item. We are collecting items from the database to the list of to-do items. And why this is a problem. This is a problem because to do item is actually an entity, and this is a database object. Like this is an object that should be used with in a communication with database and used by our model. But what we are doing here is that we are pushing it, like sending it as a response. Actually, we are taking this list here and sending it as a response to the front end. And why this is a problem? It is a problem because it, I would say, exposes implementation details to the outside world, which is our front end in that case. And it is not recommended, it breaks encapsulation rule, I would say. And another thing is that it makes impossible to develop data model and API separately. So what I mean by that? Basically, again, this is a small application, so this is not a big problem here. But if this application would be bigger, like have plenty of services, plenty of controllers, and also plenty of objects stored in plenty of entities and tables in the database. So there are plenty of objects created while this application works. Then it might be a problem because there is a probability that in the future we will need to, for example, add some field to this entity, and it will be needed by the application, but not for all functionalities. So for example, like we will have to add this field, but for these endpoints maybe this field will be not needed. But the problem is these endpoints, this API, this controller would be forced to use this new field, and it will be sent to the front end. So also the front end would have to adjust to these changes. And so this generates a lot of problems here, basically. In that case, it's not that problematic, but thinking about developing another functionalities, building the application further, this will probably be a problem in the future. So this is another mistake. And so what should we do in that situation? We should introduce another object, which is to do item DTO, for example, so something like that. And it will be DTO stands for data transfer object, and that object will be used on the front end part with communication with the front end, and the to do item will be still used as a model object. So that's how should it be done. And to make this like the most efficient, we should probably introduce another object, some kind of mapper, which will have methods to map to do item to do item DTO, and other way around, so to do item DTO to do item. So it will be useful here, and that's probably how should it be implemented. So that's it about this that point. Another thing we can notice here, the fields are injected using auto-wired here, like using field injection. Another problem is that another problem is that we are using this to-do item repository only here as an internal. It is an internal dependency, so it should actually be set as private. So that's another mistake. And the object mapper also. And as I mentioned, here we are using a dependency injection. On the fields. So there are basically three types of injection in Spring, supported by Spring. There is constructor injection, field injection, and setter injection. And field injection is actually no longer recommended way to inject dependencies in Spring, and there are a few reasons for that. So the first reason is that it actually forces Spring to break rules of Java. So assuming that these fields are private, then what is the purpose of private keyword? So its purpose is to make this dependency, this field, not accessible from the outside world. So it by definition shouldn't be accessible from outside by any other object. It should be only used inside this service. But Spring is forced to break this rule because we are auto-wiring this dependency, injecting it. So Spring uses reflection behind the scenes. The reflection mechanism is used by Spring, and it breaks this rule. It sets these dependencies even though they are private. So this is the first thing. And another problem is that it makes unit testing harder from the same reason, I would say, like to some degree the same reason, because if we will be trying to test it, then we also will have to break rules of Java and use this reflection mechanism, as I mentioned, to set these dependencies and test the class properly. So I will be testing the class in the future videos, so you will see what I mean. And but this is another problem. It's just harder to test. And how does Spring initialize these dependencies? It is that it actually initializes this class without them. So there is probability that they will be null. So that generates another problem. Like the probability maybe is not that big, but there is a moment that when these dependencies they just might be null. So this is another problem here. And what is recommended here instead of field injection is generally injection by constructor. So I will show you how to do this, but this is the recommended way. We should inject it in the constructor, and then it is easier to unit test. It doesn't break any rule of Java. It's just better, and it is recommended by Spring itself. So that's it, I believe. And for now, that's all about these mistakes. Uh, there will be more of them probably, but these are the like the biggest ones. So so that's it, I believe, about this episode. And in the next episodes, I will be uh, fixing these mistakes, doing refactoring. So that's it. And hope to see you in the next videos. And see you. Just see you. Bye.